Good afternoon to everyone. So I was requested a few weeks ago, maybe a few months ago, to give a talk on practicing refuge in daily life. I was very happy to have this opportunity to give a talk on how to practice refuge in daily life, and to have this opportunity to meet you all and make connection with you. Even though it's virtually, we still make a connection, and this I really appreciate. The topic of refuge is a topic of great importance. Whilst I don't know you, one thing I am certain of is that all of us want happiness. We don't want to experience any pain, suffering, or difficulties at all, because this is the underlying motivation for all beings, that of wanting happiness and freedom from suffering. Recognizing, understanding that, we see why we go for refuge. So now as the translator, just to say as an aside, the word refuge, that we translate as refuge, it also has the meaning of to protect or protection. So I'll be, as the translator, using these words refuge and protection interchangeably, because it is actually the same word. So now to continue with what Geshe said. So therefore, the reason we turn to the three jewels for refuge or for protection is because we recognize that they provide, that they have the ability to provide protection from suffering, refuge from suffering. In our world, there are many different religions, and the different religions will have their own objects of refuge. Some will have one, some will have more than one. Buddhism has three, always three, never four or five, or only ever three. The three objects of refuge are the Buddha jewel, the Dhamma jewel, and the Sangha jewel.
Captain Bob was Captain Bob Captain Bob was in the mal chick in the choker is a Lubdin chickenti, that San you control Captain Bob was the name San you control said the San Yo Koron Gyume Tantric say Yomo Bachasan Pang Charge, Yundan Chasan top Chawaje, and the Niki Gasa Chilla, and the San you control cigar. Which is the name of Korongi, Yaman Yamlin Chibi Gabla. And then you move about the Sera Yamlin Chitati for Yamyon Tone, and also man looked in Chigu and Ma Captain Bob was a San you control Captain Bob or
the Buddha jewel, it refers to the Buddha who is the teacher of refuge, our teacher. And he is, being a Buddha is a faultless being, a perfected being, which means that the two aspects of all faults on the mind have been eliminated, not partially, not largely, but completely eliminated. And in conjunction with this, a Buddha is a being who has developed all good qualities, not partially or largely, but completely or perfectly. Therefore, the continuum of a Buddha is perfectly purified of all faults, and all good qualities have been perfectly developed. And this was done by training his mind. Every Buddha is the same. They have perfected their state by perfectly eradicating all faults and accumulating all good qualities through training their mind. With a mind that has been perfected, free of faults and perfected good qualities, a Buddha perfectly knows the minds of all beings. And therefore, the Buddha perfectly knows the individual karmic dispositions and individual backgrounds of every being, and thereby is able to faultlessly guide beings to achieve eventually the state of enlightenment themselves. And it is only a Buddha who has perfected their mind, and therefore it's only a Buddha who perfectly knows others too, or faultlessly knows others too, and therefore can faultlessly guide others, or to express it differently, faultlessly, perfectly illuminate the path to enlightenment for all beings. The second jewel, the Dharma jewel, this is something to be developed and will eventually be found on our own continuum. Through cultivating the path and purifying faults and developing qualities, we will generate the Dharma jewel on our own continuum. The Dharma jewel is something that will be developed on our continuum. What is the Dharma jewel? It is the state of being liberated from suffering. Or to express that differently, it is the abandonment of the afflictions together with their seeds. How do we attain a state of abandoning the afflictions together with their seeds? It is through developing true paths on our continuum. And eventually, when we develop true paths, that will be one aspect of the Dharma jewel on our continuum. And with the development of a true path, we attain also true cessations, or the truth of cessations and the truth of paths. This is now the second, the true cessations, is the second aspect or element of the Dharma jewel. And this is the cessation of the afflictions together with their seeds. And how that is experienced is freedom from suffering. With afflictions and their seeds eradicated, we experience liberation from suffering, freedom from suffering. And this is the Dharma jewel, the truth of paths and the truth of cessations that we will develop on our own continuum.
the getting controls, didn't answer ya, Jingan also, Jipa Labia, the new Robachi Hindi, that public answer said, the getting control did it.
The first jewel we heard was the Buddha. The second jewel is the Dharma jewel, which we will develop on our continuum. And what is that in particular? It's true paths and true cessations. How do we develop those? Well, the Buddha jewel, Buddha Shakyamuni, he taught how to do so. And so therefore we need to train our own mind, develop the Dharma within our own mind in order to give rise to the Dharma jewel on our own continuum, the true paths and true cessations. And how do we do so? We have guides, mentors. These are Arya beings, and these are the Sangha jewel, our guides, our mentors, who are Arya beings. They are illustrations of the Sangha jewel.
That Jap Sum Gida, Sanje Conjo, Shu Conjo, Ketum Conjo, Jap Sum Je, that Jap Sum Koranjiki, that Chike Yagarosh teacher. That thing on the Bill charge the Karsha was an Sanje Conjo said, member Kaba, Missy, member Kaba Chita, better bit, Dochi, Sanje Conjo, Bill teacher. That Chu Conjo said, Mendi, Mendi, a picture. The Gilum Conjo said, Mesha Patina Pesha, Tizan never chicken, now to let never chicken on the Japsu to hunting out the never Pesha. Tizan also never the near the Tabala, the member Cabach Kuores, she's a member Cabat, Pashim Juchi, men Denistin and never the Jatwoods and big member Cabat, the main chick party. Then answer again. The men did this who you make and how we made the Robert again, the measure of the Robert, the getting on your Robert. Says that man didn't answer the South, said that's I didn't answer the conjugate, Lam Yamle Chegation, but Lobjan Cheting and men Sawa Chipade. She meant the Saya do, men the Sas Havishella and the Nubati, many Nubati, must native so Melsugo, Ranella, Tagorwa, the name answering Yamlin Jebala, Dene, and Azula, Lamden, and Quotin Bulaki, and then answer Kovi to one Tagores. Just not that Sanje Conjo said, member Kabachidan Jawache, Shu Conjo said, the men did that Jawache, and then that Gideon Conjo said, men Shabatidan Jawache, and also Japsu to Hankasati, the never did not Jawas, on those in a between Sunkore.
So therefore the three jewels refer to the Buddha jewel, the Dharma jewel, and the Sangha jewel. Another illustration that is often presented in the context of refuge is, first, we recognize that we are likened to a patient, someone who's ill. And we come to understand this through recognizing that we are in pain, we are suffering. And what do we do when we recognize or experience our pain and suffering? We will go to a doctor and we'll seek out a skilled doctor, one that we know we can rely on. In this analogy, the doctor would be Buddha Shakyamuni. And because Buddha Shakyamuni, effectively a skilled doctor, would be able to not only perfectly diagnose our illness, but the perfect prescription of medicine that we need to take, or medical treatment we need to follow. And that medical treatment is likened here to the Dharma jewel. This, we as the patient, have the responsibility to follow the prescribed medical treatment in order to heal. So again, the medical treatment then is the Dharma jewel. But over this course of following the advice of the doctor and engaging in this medical treatment, we require assistance from skilled medical staff. And in the analogy, they are the Sangha jewel, those who are accompanying us, guiding us, making sure that we're taking the medicine at the right time of day and we engage in various exercises that we need to. That is the Arya beings, the Sangha jewel. So this analogy is also used to show how our relationship, to explain our relationship with the three jewels, where we recognize that we are a patient in need of healing, suffering and pain. The Buddha is the Buddha jewel. Buddha Shakyamuni is the skilled doctor. The Dharma jewel is our medical treatment, And the Sankajul are the skilled medical staff, guiding us, holding our hand, leading us to freedom from suffering, freedom from pain.
Me yabu yobene jike kasore men kanis jeko de nazidilia dachi member kebach mebane ne de tatuya marwa ji me yabure sa shabane jine nege ninga yorwa ji ya jike member kebach yobene mitege me mena ya nazitatuya yamarwa on dina shinda jike member da member da me yobene da delia niyo da me shebi tone 야고식이 매바이나 나 디제 나 네발야 강아먹고 치고로 언디 나시 다 디니기 나저 네바지 야고 잡발라 맹구와 장라 캐바지고 와래 아니 메셔바지고 디 숨기 토네 나저 네바 네스투고 언디 나시 상계 여바네 최디고 와래 저 상계 최denken 상계체 디니 아주 냠슬레게 최디체 얘네야 냠슬렘 발로 로치게 기둥 거죠. 이 숨기 돈에 아주게 거기 동안을 저 투어래지.
All three of these components are essential. We need to go to a doctor who is skilled. It's no good going to a doctor who cannot diagnose us or cannot diagnose us correctly. Moreover, we need, having been diagnosed, we need to receive a course of medical treatment. Without the course of medical treatment, merely being diagnosed will not lead to healing. And also, to ensure that we follow the course of medical treatment properly, we need skilled medical staff. So when all three are required, we will heal. We will heal. So therefore, we require the teacher of the Buddha Dharma, we require the teachings themselves, and we require the Sankajul, our companions, our guides. When all three are present, we will heal from suffering.
Dene zada ngazui tade kebyu dinge dosjino go so yadira sanyo konjo che konjo kidung konjo sombo de kepso to yu diles zada di pedar masone memba da ande sige me da me shaba de pedin diles and ngazui dosi diles and that kebyu dingo so sade that tambote that dijele and that kepso kan stro khore se kemro se de kan si labure se de kemro de mo so yati ni bete da kemro mo so yati.
That's one topic we've now looked at. What are the objects of refuge? And this was explained and presented with an illustration. Now we come to the second topic, which is how to go for refuge.
we manzo kuri dunga thala le kemne kon sum kyogre sambigete sim dingi yiche be yiche dela jamro la ko da di jamro se dire jamro ngone di da kuri dunga thala le da kanisina sangi koncho sum kyogre sabi yiche be sim dingi yiche be da lo kebe ge da samno dela da jamro se ko deni jiwe be na jamro yore da jamro se ore.
So how does one go for refuge? This isn't about a mere recitation or physical gesture. This is about a way of thinking. First, we've recognized that we are suffering and we need to gain freedom from suffering. Then we ask ourselves the question, who has the ability to guide us to attain a state freed from suffering, liberated from suffering? And we recognize the three jewels can guide us to gain protection from suffering. And we recognize that, to reflect on it again and again, developing deep, heartfelt trust, conviction that the three jewels can guide us to develop our mind and gain freedom from suffering. Here, this mind of deep trust in the three jewels, in their ability to guide us to a place freed of suffering. This is the mind going for refuge. So again, the mind that goes for refuge, or the practice of going for refuge, is a mind of deep trust that the three jewels have the ability to guide us, to develop our mind, to attain a state freed from suffering, protected from suffering.
On that, denigi Gemne Conjus, Kuri, Dunga, Tadele, Gemne, Yubri, some Ichi, Tempu Juna, Niela, some of Harley wars, and Dangazula, the Dunga as Dambo, the Ganga de Sam Dankura, the Ganga de Machine Buena, and the Ganga de la Tariage, Sama Horaki Mara, which is the dinner in Sangazu, Korvigi, that Dunga, Tanga, Milere, Simjan Dundolere, Ganga Kanagan. Neyam tonere and Susuge Martu tonere and Dimbi, that's also like Michigi, Gaso Koryu tone, Dene Ganga Yundu, some big Ganga de Gesebo Hawache. Nata Ganga de la Sev, you have a Dine Ganga de Canis Segres, Ganga de la Canis Tortugure, some big that Torre Denige Tablam Nuba, the Sulu Yore, some time, and they give me conscious of your essay. That the Damwadi the Hawache, some Kori. Dunga de la Targu and be some nochi down. Then they call it Dunga le Targu winner, they let you be new Sulu essence, Gemio Conjosum de your essence. This some down do, and then you would Sumba de la Cali or that Dunga Tadalu give new body, the Conjos me, Jogres and be Ichidi, legal already, Ichi the Jamgo de, they need Jamrique, Yuru Chakore.
Now presented what is meant by going for refuge. So how does one go for refuge in a sincere way? Because we've heard it's not a physical gesture, it's not a mere recitation, but it's a way of thinking in mind. So how does one develop such a mind? How does one give rise to stable trust that the three jewels can protect us from suffering? The first step is to reflect on suffering. To the extent that we come to know suffering, coarse levels, and especially the subtle levels, we will look for who has the ability to guide us to a state where we are protected from suffering. So here we need to think about the myriad sufferings that humans and animals experience, whether it's suffering from environmental degradation or conflict, and certainly suffering arising internally from one's way of thinking. This needs to be reflected on well, because to the extent that one has come to recognize the suffering nature of samsara, we will give rise to a yearning to be freed from suffering. And independence on the strength of this yearning to be free from suffering, we will search for who has the ability to protect us from suffering. And here we will come to recognize that the three jewels have the ability to guide us so that we attain protection within. This is then the cause for going for refuge. First, or the cause for generating the mind of going for refuge. First, to reflect well on suffering, and independence on that, we'll seek out who has the ability to guide us. And third, we'll come to recognize it's the three jewels. That's how one generates the mind going for refuge. Take then what I've presented as what it means to go for refuge and how to generate such a mind, and apply that with the illustration I gave earlier. We'll see that it actually matches very well. We tend not to go to a doctor if we feel fine. It's only when we recognize I'm in suffering, I'm in pain, that we go to the doctor. So first we need to recognize suffering. And if we have an idea, oh, I feel a little off, we'll probably just ignore it. But if we look well, investigate well, and see that there's something wrong underneath, then we will go to a doctor. And in fact, we won't just go to any doctor, we'll seek out someone who is skilled, who knows what they're talking about. And then when we see such a doctor, and we gain trust in that doctor, we will follow the medical treatment. Without first recognizing we're ill, we wouldn't go to a doctor. And if someone took us, we certainly wouldn't follow the detailed prescribed course of medical treatment. We'll just ignore that. But when we recognize we're ill, especially if we recognize that the depth of our illness, we'll seek out a skilled doctor. And dependent on our trust in the skill of the doctor, recognizing that this doctor really knows what they're talking about, we will follow their advice. So there are varying stages here. So we need to recognize that we're ill, and we need to have the trust in the doctor. Those two are required in order to follow their advice well. And this is the mind of going for refuge, having trust in the doctor, which comes about dependence on recognizing our suffering.
마 송바 나진 직되는 지역을 나칼라드는 지역을 맨주드는 사고를 안주시 최대한 마선에 되는 지역을 말랍지 잡아 나시 저기 라렌텍도와 진짜 멤버기 맨된다 평가요래 매된나 교행가려 받대 하고 같이 되네 매바다 매셔바데 맨들 이치여 받지 이치매나야 매셔 매라 이치매 되네 멤버라 이치매네 맨주드 다다다다 라렌텍 마생마 마서만 먼저 편야요 말아. 어비디나 이제 당한테 겹수 줘봐 있나? 편연 되는데 요래. 겹수 맞줘봐 있나? 안 되는데 저기 교연 되는데 요 봐자. 다 겹수 줘봐 나제 상이 좀 된데 마 하는 말아서 겹수 랍준 제바 나신 아주 냠는 제바는 동안에 세 투그레스 비다. 김내 고주스는 이체로 줘봐는 이체바이나 이시 제바이나 다 건주기 말랍지 라바들랑 아주 라렌데야게 캬브라 침부는 거래. 제가 건조리야 이지메나 직시거데 팽기에나메나 선배기 되네 이지메나 아니디 저기 람냠len 지야라 따다를 냠는지 두고 말디자 gem려 건조 숨이야 이체 다 쪼그리 선배 샘 딩기 이치 고고에서 gem로 세야데 이치 고고에서 김젠디로라.
From this analogy, we can understand that when one recognizes we're ill, there's great benefit in going to the doctor, and great fault will follow from not doing so. And in fact, the more clearly one recognizes that one is ill, we'll have a greater determination to ensure that we go, and not only ensure that we go and make time in our busy schedule, but we will follow their advice, even if their advice means setting time aside to do varying activities, we will do so. But if we don't recognize we're ill, or we do, but we don't trust what the doctor has to say, we will not benefit from their skill because we will not follow their advice. So too with the practice of refuge. In dependence on recognizing suffering, both coarse and subtle, and recognizing that only the three jewels have the ability to skillfully guide us to develop protection from suffering within our own mind. To the extent that we recognize that, we will have trust in the three jewels, and therefore we will go for refuge and follow the advice of the Buddha. In other words, put the trainings, the teachings into practice. Without the trust in the three jewels, we may hear teachings, we may enjoy them, but that's where we will leave them. But to the extent we have deep, heartfelt trust in the three jewels, we will readily apply ourselves to cultivating the teachings within our mind, we will be able to restructure our life to make sure we have time to do so. And we'll keep these teachings present in our mind, not just in meditation or when reading a book, but at all times. So the development of heartfelt trust in the three jewels, which comes through, firstly, reflecting on suffering, and secondly, that only the three jewels have the ability to provide one protection from suffering. That way, we will be able to go for refuge and thereby practice the Dharma thoroughly. Very first, one of the very first segments of my teaching today, I mentioned that we all want happiness, freedom from suffering. This is our underlying deep, heartfelt desire. It motivates everything we say, do, and think. Happiness only comes about in dependence on causes. So too does suffering. And so too does the eradication of suffering come about only in dependence on causes. And dependence arising, is the very essence of the Buddha's teachings. So when we go for refuge with a mind of heartfelt trust to the Buddha, it is because we have recognized that the Buddha can guide us so that we develop our mind so that we attain freedom from suffering. With this heartfelt trust, we will apply the Buddha's teachings into our daily life, in meditation and throughout our daily activities. And the very essence of these teachings is dependence arising, in particular, dependency on causes. Happiness we long for only will come about in dependence on accumulating the appropriate causes. Freedom from suffering and pain, a life lived without any unwanted misery, pain, or suffering, comes about solely in dependence on accumulating the correct causes. The dependence arising is the very heart, the essence of the Buddha's teachings.
and Mishandagi, Sangi, and around the Gachi Moja, Sangi, Jingi Lapjana, the Dumas, Meva Shada, and Digi Trupcha, the nation Mumari, Cesada, you don't get the dinner, so Digi Kuina, so Digi, good social Trupures. Cesar Duma Sewasan, says Duma Maya, good Pamela, so said Sangi Lobden 9 didn't gore. Tis a dinner you do. Ding on to Yamlin Chewara, Ding Yamlin Jella, that road is usually getting watcher, the Majapanaji get watch to Chewara. Chesadu sitting around to get Sanji looked in Jabadi, Yamlin Jabalatine, and out to Gilligilis in the Yagi Chinja, out to get a church when you are setting on to the Cocktail Lambin Gulaki, didn't have to call it to Malataya Kosu board.
to achieve happiness and overcome problems, the way we mostly follow is in reliance on the material world to have more comfortable material conditions so as to remove problems and experience happiness. And this is a useful technique and a technique that's important to continue to follow. And there you can think of many examples where independence on particular causes, your material life, your material experience improves. And in particular, and dependence on other causes, your problems in the physical world, the material world, lessen. So we see then dependency in work. But the material world cannot resolve our suffering. Only through transforming our way of thinking, our inner world, can we gain true freedom, lasting freedom from suffering. And in this regard, Buddha Shakyamuni clearly taught the method to do so, which he himself perfectly followed. And moreover, he taught that this method, each individual person, they themselves are responsible for cultivating in their own mind. He can't do the work for us. He can't accumulate the causes for us. This perfected being cannot do the work for us. We have to do it ourselves. We need to practice. We need to train our mind. The word practice, the literal translation is to gain experience of. So to gain experience of the Buddha's teachings, that is practicing. Transforming our mind, getting mental experience of the Buddha's teachings is the meaning of practice. And this is the only way to gain freedom from suffering. So we have to accumulate the causes ourselves. And we do so in dependence on the Sangha, our guides, our mentors, our spiritual teachers. We do so in dependence on their teachings. And we do so in dependence on our practice of those teachings, our meditation and study of those teachings. And we do so in dependence on relying on the Buddha jewel. So in this way, dependence on the three jewels and our own effort, we will begin this process of accumulating the paths required to eventually abandon the afflictions together with their seeds, and thereby develop the Dharma jewel within, gain freedom from suffering.
On the needs that Jamju Labja Layati, Tangarsungorasana, Tangarzuli, Delia, to be Kapi Labja said that in the Chigyo Mare said, Soya Chik Labja Chikungore, that was to be Labjas indeed, Yamlin did the Geokore said, Labja Masona, Yili Gore.
In the context of refuge, there's advice that's given or trainings that are given. These we can group into two categories. What one should cease doing and what one should engage in doing. So what one should abandon and what one should adopt.
On the thing as you jump to Labja and Yamlin chair, thing as a missile, Nidelia, also Jawayaba, and Yamlin Chetade, that is a douche, Jabret, Jamdra Labja and Yamlin chair, thing as Nide, and Jig Tolia, Jig Missile, Yamlin chair, Odusine, Labja Yamlin Chagore.
These trainings we need to engage in every day.
That's on YouTube. The answer Jam to Chevida, Jichu Maresa, the Karachio Maresa, Labchigo, Tewachio Maresan, the Tewachio Mares, more than Tewachio Mares. Then on the Tewache, the Karachio was Luma, you with the Tewachi, Bendigo, you going to six subla, Shan, six subla, Shan, Makibosea. And then now you're going to do share down. Shan cohort diala sopata, and mini tumbo yoba, and mitumbas are dushing Jabina, Tangan now and Milishan, no year, new or the Nishi, now you're going to Sera Jey Monastery. Then you go in Shangi, say, Kumaku, La Sopata, and the Shanlia, Chike, don't you don't down La Sopat, and she Shanla to the down, and then you go in, do Shan, Luna, you go in Shanlia, to be Javachin, Shanla, Nubi Javachin, this so. And Chigyo Mare that DJ Vaina, 안 파주 현래 마기 발 강아지야. 근데 지기 기인지네 파주 현래 강아지도 소소래 나아줄래 강아지 그래서 동안 뭐 그래서 파 측신의 미수의 직시기로와 제사디 파녀비기는 수연녀비기로 가서 대장신이가 마기와 야디 류다 마기 쥐람기 마직비 토네 용을 진짜 류가의 쥐람 현래야 체위의 쥐람되기 지교 말에 에서지 다 제초고 말했지 디슨 거래.
이 차선에서 보고서 이네디 뭐라 계란나서 랍초센터 나서 이메네레
제초고 말했어야 되도와
이메네레 가서 제초
제초고 말해서 가르 제초고 말했으니 류가 쥐비 채워 제초고 말했어
이네디 뭐라 계란 이메네레 숨숨 디로크 말에 디란친
디디로 아니면 제초마 디로 와데 님을 가르나 제마초디 니 디린 제초 상이 제초고 말해서 저 말하데 세상 류가 이웃은 요거에 채워쳐야지 현리야 채워지고 말해서야지 내 제초고 말해서 디가도 님이 이래니들이야 먼저 라렌 따고 디로와
the training them in what to abandon, what to cease engaging in, that we need to engage in continuously, is to express it in 2 words, maybe a few more. Don't do any harm. Don't do any harm. Harm we express through our physical behavior or our way of speaking. With the physical behavior, this would of course be engaging in physical conflict with others, beating, harming, killing, physically, or stealing from others. This we need to abandon, and abandon completely. Not just from time to time, but completely. And in terms of harm verbally, our way of speaking, we shouldn't lie, we shouldn't deceive others, we shouldn't create disharmony. So therefore, both our body and our speech, we should ensure we bring no harm to others. Because if we bring harm to others, not only do we harm them, but we harm ourselves. And we know from where we have been involved in conflict. We are unhappy, as is the other person. There are no winners from this. Moreover, bringing harm into the lives of others is contrary to the path of the Dharma. How is it that we ourselves or others bring harm to others, harm them physically or harm them through our way of speaking? It's always preceded by a wish to do so. Whether that wish the harm doer is aware of or not, there was a motivation to say what was said, to say it in the way that it was said, or to physically harm someone. This all was preceded by a motivation to do so. Not necessarily intentionally generated, but nevertheless, it followed from a way of thinking. This we need to recognize within ourselves, that through, for example, anger arising, harm follows. We recognize that it's from our motivation, our way of thinking, that we harm others, that we go against the refuge advice. We need to focus then on abandoning, destroying, eliminating this motivation, this way of thinking. And to the extent that we are able to eradicate such a motivation, we'll bring no harm into the life of others. We won't speak to them in a harmful manner. We won't physically engage with others in a harmful manner.
That is also one to get Yamyot and how to a check or Ruadan to get some as a corner Shovene and Pashula Chikisha, Nazu, the Donam Yuna, just Zubur, and Pacha de Gyume Chada, and the Pacha de Gyume, the Pacha de Su, the Namju Dujet, and then also Gyume, continue like Gyume Chading and the Sebur Chagura. Today in that down to the Samlo, Shanlia, the Dushin, Kunlung and Badi, Pa Meva Sukure Essage, somewhere. Is that the Meva Sue, the Canis Meva Sue as an Diadi, Mouth, some of the Meva Sue, Shanley, Sibir, somebody Meva Sue. Me da denigi sachi ne meba suya skaya mare di gane so da samlo ma so samlo ta chi meba suya de che da samlo gane stang wo se ne tang an ju gi di ring an ju ni min ni le ya idi ne da di ring jo ge ne ya lang yu de kap le ya de di ring ge shan le ya sim je na da dun ro na da mi li na su li ne sha ba chi chi pha ne be ge samlo se de ne be jawa se lu nga yu ko ne sha le ne be jawa sa wo ji gi me sam be samlo di this some the tank over this some of the Yane, Tampa, and you did Shushove Tabaina, and you would do a pass of Lagato de Cabrina, then to the fashioning Michelle and you begin savage. I was at our chimneas and began somebody in India, and in Sugar and young water, Conda, the Kidi, to start to win. Did it down begin somebody shooting ye to Lumage, Chip and Numbu Shanley, Tewadi, Numbu Martin, Pingo, Legend.
I'm sure all of you have some experience of seeing how one's motivation leads to harmful physical, verbal behavior. When anger arises, even if it's not expressed verbally or physically, all too often one's face changes. One's face may get a little redder. The expression may reveal how we feel inside. You can see this sequence that from a way of thinking, physical change comes. And we also know that we may express our anger towards others. And anger is just one illustration, but also from other motivating minds. We may, for example, lie or deceive others. This needs to be abandoned because we know also from our own experience that when these minds arise within us, we harm ourselves. To the extent that we express this way of thinking, we harm others. So this is known, but I encourage you to watch your mind and see the validity of this through noticing the subtler levels as well. Because this will add to the strength of your motivation to transform your mind, to prioritize, to transforming your mind. So dependence on the strength of motivation one has to transform one's mind, one will apply oneself to do so. And the method, despite the analogy of a doctor and a patient, is not through taking pills. The meditation is to transform, the technique is to transform our way of thinking. How to do so? Well, I encourage you, first thing in the morning, when you wake up, even before you get out of bed, think, today I will not harm anyone. I will not harm another living being, human or animal. I will not harm them directly to my way of speaking or acting, and I won't harm others even indirectly. I will bring no harm to others. So here we're generating a thought. It took maybe 10 seconds. And does that when one wakes up. And if you have a meditation practice, you can include that in your meditation practice. But what you also need to do is throughout the day, repeat that. I will not harm anyone. I'm going into a meeting, I'm driving in traffic, I will not harm anyone. I will watch my mind and ensure that if a thought leading to harm arises, I will deal with that. I won't allow it to foster. I won't allow it to abide within me. If any thoughts of anger or frustration, annoyance or resentment arise, well, let those go, because I do not want to harm anyone. That mere arisal of such a thought is harming me. So generate these thoughts again and again throughout the day, and the next day, repeat the process. Wake up in the morning, before getting out of bed, have a quick thought. Will not harm today. No one under any circumstance. Include it in your meditation and remind yourself of this. It only takes seconds throughout the day. You combine that with watching your mind, taking care of your mind. And you hear, engaging in meditation, the process to transform your mind. The key aspect here is to repeatedly, over a sustained period, generate these thoughts. Then change will come.
Somebody Paligo Marva, Malevanza, Jigmisa Jigin, non Tubine, the Sosoran, any thing around the chicken raw, Soso, Puta, Soso Sadasa, Jan Consulia, Tawa Chigmes, and be Colonel Chigmes, some big Jigmar Chigmes, and the summer Jobaina, and the Lunga and the beauty, and it Tubuti Ling Malevanza, and it Namine, Chambuachida. And the Chilo Robine, and the Lagalero in the robotic in air, the Chitumbu had it, Chawatches that to be Kachimbo, Ninelia, Yapsu Droiviki, Yapsu Drona, Labji Sanji, Labjidi, Yamlanding, and Yamland Chedi, those chin chair by now, Russian Nicola Panto Yuba Chawade.
Such a meditation isn't particularly technical, isn't particularly complex. It's very easy to do. Now, I'm sure that to the extent that each and every one of you applies this to your way of thinking repeatedly over a sustained period, thoughts of harm will arise less frequently. And when they do arise, they'll have less strength and the duration will be ever less. And over a period of time, as you continue to generate the thought, will not harm others. Thoughts of wanting to take advantage of others, wanting to deceive others, talking badly about others, these you'll deal with more skillfully, and they'll arise less often. And again, when they do, they'll have less duration and less strength. Thereby, as your mind changes like this, so too will the resulting behavior, physical and verbal. And this will be noticed in your home, the loved ones that you live with, your way of interacting with them, your way of dealing with life's challenges will change. So too in your place of work. Your colleagues will notice this change. They will see you in a new light because you are developing, transforming, becoming a new person. And in fact, even the strangers one encounters in one stage of life will create no disharmony with them. Your own mind is more peaceful, and thereby your relationships with others will be peaceful. So therefore, following this very simple advice from the Buddha, this refuge precept, great benefit comes to oneself and to all those one encounters.
On that, he said, Lucian, some dining out of Lapjas. That do be Lapjas, the Garzons, the Shanley, Pembertria, the Shanley, raw chair, Shanley, Pempig, sometimes, Shanley, Jambata, Xavier, some of the that do be Lapjas, the Jehu is thinking, Shanley, Zewa, Chicken, Shanley, and the Goswori, Jamba, Gumki, said Jamba Chiata, and the Shanley, raw chickens, and some Pember to be simply, and the summer died, the do be Lapjas is.
I mentioned earlier that the refuge precept or refuge advice is twofold. The one, what should be abandoned. So that is any thoughts of harm towards others. And this we need to understand in quite a wide way in terms of thoughts of harm. Then the second type is of precepts or advice is what to adopt. What should be adopted or cultivated is an attitude of wanting to benefit others. This is the companion to what should be abandoned, which is we abandon any thought of bringing harm. What we adopt is a wish to be of benefit to others, to be of benefit in the lives of others, to generate within ourselves, to develop within ourselves a tender heart, a gentle and caring attitude towards others, where we feel a sense of closeness for others, wanting them to be happy and free of pain. This tender, gentle heart towards others. This is the second advice to cultivate.
samlo jangdur chiya dire samlo jangdur chiya se samlo de yane yang da ya de samlo jangdur chi ba na zo jige dirwa zemo ine jangdur chi so zemo de yane yang da chiya de zene jangdur chi de zemo ke ba cha da da jige xieru da we na de yane yang da yane da da jangdur de jangdur chi xie ya bo da so cha go din na xin na zo samlo de xie ya zi yue sambo da jian bi samlo xian de pe pe jigin se de samlo 양내 양도 양내 땅에 두고 누베 chercher 마스 누베 chercher 공시 chercher 쳤는데 야 야고 차로 보러
Yeah, too, with the what should be cultivated, adopted, the loving tender heart towards others, just like with what should be abandoned, all thoughts of harm towards others. The process is the same. We need to train our mind, and not sporadically, not now and again, but repeatedly over a sustained period. In other words, we need to become habituated to this way of thinking, habituated to developing this mind that finds any harmful thought towards or about others is completely unacceptable, as something that one has an aversion towards. And likewise, developing a tender heart, a genuine tender heart towards others, where one naturally, innately feels closeness and warmth towards all others. This technique of training the mind, for it to be successful, requires repeated training over a sustained period. And this is not only the technique that we apply in meditation, but throughout society. So you think of the sports stars that you enjoy watching. The only reason they got to the level that they could get picked for their team, perhaps represent their nation, isn't solely because of natural ability, in other words, the imprinsible from past lives, but because they applied themselves, they trained repeatedly over a sustained period. They never would have had a moment or a day saying, oh, today I don't feel like training. We know how committed athletes are, or those who rise to a level of prominence. They are committed. They are not part-timers. They apply themselves. Or the singers and musicians whose music that you enjoy, they only got to the level of prominence that they achieved through applying themselves, through training their abilities repeatedly over a sustained period. So this technique we need to apply to our mental development as well.
Andine zada ngaju jamje samdang de kan stang go le na tangbo soso rang dewa bare dunga du go mare sesa soso rang dewa bare za dunga me go ma mi shen yi jige soso ya chisu ta kan a shen da ji me ba cha ba na xin da soso shen ga ji go ro ba shen sim je zui ne dewa bare dunga du yo ma rang na ji bare ge za shen sim je tham je dine samda je tangbo rang da Shen Simja Dewa to Dumame to Chibare, some Samshita. Then Niba de la, Dene Zada Simja Dewa de Dena, Sambig, somebody, Nikon Yani, Yanto Tinicati, Tashoga, Yungu, Giti, Dusukati, come down to be net in a diada. Then Shen Simja Tamja Dewa Dena. The Simja Duma to Google, which is a Simja to Dua Jana, Sambig, and some diada, Lucine, some da. That Simja Shelia, Shen Digi to Yada. 디유야다 신이 두마세랑이 팬비게 조로로지 같이 지투 지긴 선배 삼다데 이 디수 삼다데 아주기다 냠len 제거에 디수리다 상유 줌는 디가 들이야 동안을 저에게 탑람 디삼는 된스땅고 그래 송아디 다디 삼다데 아주 니네니네리아 아주 도시네 땅도 보고 그래.
The technique then to generate a tender, loving attitude towards others starts with recognizing, or starts with coming to know our own mind, recognizing that our motivation behind everything is a wish for happiness. Even when afflictions arise, anger and the like, it's only because we want to be rid of something, because we want to be happy and not suffer. To the extent we recognize this within ourselves, we can appreciate it the same with others. No matter what they do, no matter what they say, the motivation is the same, happiness. And as I am pervaded by this wish for happiness, everything I do is motivated with this, so too for others. Therefore, as others are just like me, wanting happiness, how can it ever be justified to harm them? How can it ever be justified to lie to them, to deceive them, to talk to them in a rough manner? Even where I need to discourage them from doing something, I need to talk to them in a way that does not bring unhappiness into their life. Bringing unhappiness into the life of someone else, never justified. This we need to cultivate, through recognizing that in the same way, I don't want to be treated harshly, nor do others. The same way that I don't want to be thought about or spoken behind my back about harshly, nor do others. Therefore, I should not engage in such behavior. This then, as a companion, just like I want to receive help and assistance when I require it, and I want to be liked, and respected, and treated tenderly and with care from others, this is what others long for from me too. Because this is how they want to be treated. We are all the same. We generate the thought, may all things be happy. Just like I want to be happy, may I. May we all relate to each other with care and kindness, just like I want to be treated in all circumstances. May I be part of this. May I also thereby always relate to others with care and kindness. Here we can go through situations, role plays, thinking of situations we will encounter, and how we can relate to others there with skill, with care, tenderness, kindness. This is the method that our founder teacher, Buddha really taught. I encourage you to train your mind in this way, repeatedly over a sustained period. Change will come.
Bendigo, that's you need and it's Lharam Dorje, and that's Shedrup Kablaya. This on a famous Geshe This is that showing and during a Sharia and Chike, Tibi, Jawa, Lunga, Mission, and maybe Jawa, Chigmes, and the summer sheet. And then it down with and it during and yet Lharam to meet the suit to be near, mention that Tibi, some Chigmes, and the summer stars. And the naked on Ibadilla and Sharia. Pembet, Digi Juada, Digi Chua Show, Shensimjan, Swin, and Digi Yongashu Konzugi, Manjiki, Dumati, Sewa Shows, and sometimes Ni Konzulia, Pembeke, Robert, which got a chituna, come to do Chias and Samashi, Denishi, Tavan, Jugi, Jike, Jiso and Alpachi, Jiso, Alagastro, and you are Dene and some Dusian down and Delia and Sosugi, Jike. My the camera shooting water. Just I didn't get some of the Yane and the Taban, some of the Gomshi share and Yasi Lamsam, just corner, the corner, Chisaro Chivin and Lamsan 10 2 year down, and me Shandagi don't know down to just 6 super ship and Lamsa, or the Ninja was the corner center, and then the Yunguri, she's not the corner one give the same mighty child, don't get them get the twin or the car of Ninjas and Ninja Gomshavana, and so power corner and body. In the corner Malana, and then so some she Babu Gungore.
Complete confidence that those who commit to training in this way and do so, you will quickly find great benefits, especially if you train in the way that I advise. First thing in the morning, repeatedly throughout the day. Just takes moments to do so. And in all your daily activities, you will find benefits. As you become more habituated to this way of thinking, your mind will become more peaceful, calm, and gentle. Even if you're going about your housework, your mind will be calm and gentle. When you're engaging with others, the mind will be calm and gentle. Because of one's busy life, one meets so many people every day. Training our mind in this way, we gain protection from suffering, and we bring only benefits into the lives of others. So I encourage you, every morning, throughout the day, generate the thought, I will not harm others. I'll take care of my mind, and when I see minds of harm arising, I will deal with them. And even when they're strong, I will not express them to others. And rather, I will ensure that at all times my mind It's holding others as close, as valuing them, as seeing them as important. It's worthy, holding them dear, tenderly. And training like this, developing this way of thinking, combining it with thoughts of, wherever I'm needed, may I be there for others. Wherever help is needed, may I help perfectly in accordance with the needs of others. And where the needs of others are beyond me, may I develop those skills so I can help them. Valuing others, holding them dear, wanting to be there for others. Developing these thoughts in the spring, repeatedly over a sustained period, you will become the person you long to be. When you're starting out, and for some time, plan ahead in terms of the encounters you're likely to meet today. Perhaps you're traveling somewhere, you know the traffic will be difficult. People you'll meet who you know you may have a conflict with. Prepare well. How can I skillfully deal with these situations? Prepare that in your meditation. Remind yourself before you engage in that activity, and in this way, to be present in your mind whilst you're in a difficult meeting, in a traffic jam. This way, those challenging circumstances will not be difficult. And as you get ever more skilled in this, even when someone is directly rude to you, talking to you perhaps in an abusive manner, your commitment not to bring harm, but to rather hold others as dear, will be strong. And you'll recognize that this person before you, with a red face, bulging eyes, and a wagging finger, they are suffering. They are dear to me. I don't want them to suffer. I will not respond in kind. I will not respond with anger. Rather, I will respond skillfully in a way to ease their pain, in a way to skillfully resolve the situation. And one will be able to do so genuinely. And the other person will see your care for them in terms of your facial expression, and they will hear it in terms of your choice of words and your tone, way of speaking. And they will know that you can be trusted, that you mean them no harm, and they will come. In this way, by responding with kindness and skill, wisdom, you can harm beings, you can help beings who are suffering right there before you. And this will come about through training repeatedly over a sustained period in the way that I've advised you today.
Now, kuno semdelia shende nebe sambachi kebaina di lunga ge chebate shende nebe chawashi ligore. Da nang samlo de kuno di shende pembi ge samlo kebaina di lunga ge chawade shende pembi chuktu gore. Dine enza da zawo manzugi moda tang na shindi na zu nalo semdere. Da moda na shindi nganzu lu de ma de moda na shindi. So jawa kande yaga tang de ngadu lunga chebade yaga de rotu ge sambaina nangla jambada ziwe samba kunwa nye kombaina digi lunga chobade yakwe chotu gore. Da nangla ya kondro sambada shanla nebe samba kena lunga chobade shanla nebe chawashili gore. Den za tanga da labja nine ya gyapso chobe. Da danda nyingbo de sanji dunga tada la chobe nyuba de gyabne konjo sumi hora gyabne konjo sumi kyobore sebi ichi che. Da ichi ne gyabne konjo sumi sanji konjo labja dikare se na nga zunya. Shanlia nube jawa chikumare, so soya chigda, shanlia chante nyamne chigure, so shambada nyamne chigure, sombada ti, huda bada nyamne chigin, sembe sambache, that meaning yene liang to jawa kanti strawberry, shanlia nube jawa sao inchime, sembe samata, dine shanlia pamba, shan simja dewa de dembada, shan dunga the tower to show, shan dewa de den, the dunga the jayalia, me pemba rock at to do chigin, sembe somebody, or those chinning at the yene let it down by na. Somebody getting that down to Canada, Gishan, and Jiggy, Savame Shaya, Yahweh, Rana, Digi, Nashinical, Digi, you did, teacher watches that, simply some Tata, do some tango race as and in Indian young Java Jetati, to steal race as soon as he did, Sunday.
Imagine most of you have a car in your driveway, your garage, or before your home, and you know that car will just sit there until you get in it and drive it. And moreover, the car will only go where you direct it. So this is the position that we find ourselves in. Our speech and our physical behavior only comes about independent on our mind. From our way of thinking, we act and we speak. Our way of thinking is reflected in our physical behavior and verbal communication. I emphasize this again because we need to take care of our mind. Buddhist practice means training the mind. Buddhist practice means developing our mind. We all long for happiness. We long to have a mind that is happy, at peace, at ease, that is never disturbed and frustrated and annoyed. None of us enjoy this. We can achieve this. Moreover, we want to be a person who brings benefit into the lives of others. We don't want to be the kind of person that others fear and dislike. This too can be achieved through training our mind. We've been talking about refuge today. Refuge, or going for refuge, is a mind that trusts in Buddha Shakyamuni and thereby in his teachings and wants to put them into practice. Without that, it's a mere expression of words. The refuge advice or trainings from the Buddha, I heard, were twofold. I will cause no harm to others. Under no circumstances will I harm others. This companion, at all times, any being, whomever they are, hold them in my heart. Love, care, kindness. This way of thinking comes about through developing ourselves, developing our mind, through applying ourselves completely, thoroughly to develop this way of thinking. The way I've laid out involves first thoughts in the morning when you wake up, and then repeatedly throughout the day, reminding yourself. This only takes moments. Therefore, it's not beyond anyone, no matter how busy one's day is. Repeatedly, taking seconds to remind ourselves. And from this, as we develop a thought, holding others dear, feeling closeness towards others, not wanting to bring harm to them, but rather to benefit and be there for others as needed. We will be happier within ourselves, and therefore, seeing this, it will be ever easier to apply ourselves to these meditations. And others will be at ease in our company, will want to be with us, will see us as reliable and trustworthy, know that they are safe in our presence. Thereby, to the extent we develop and transform our mind, we are happier, as are all those we encounter.
All right, that we check the Geshe and Bendigo,
So thank you so much. I've appreciated this opportunity to meet you all and share something with you. If you have some questions, then please do ask.
So if anyone has any questions, you can put them in the chat, or you can ask them yourself. Geshe-la, I have one question. What can we do when we take refuge, we do the refuge prayer every day? What can we do when turns into just saying words. How can we change that?
Bendigo, so
지사 상계 최동 소규 최남라시 상계의 상계 건조 최来的최 건조 예 촉스의 계定决定건조 숨되듯이 시제저些상계 최동 소규嘛장주 바도 단에 겹수치에라도 다 상계 고방 마토이 바도다 결혼을 겹수 주의세 동아 타다를 겹이 니바 결혼을 인세비 이시시야데 단 겹수치에서 디시고래 다 다이 지속이고 처음에 졸라 펜션 상계 주버 쇼세디 당이 진바다 데니게 선음 사바라서 버텔라 데네 안 상계 고방 토벌 쇼세디 장슈 셈로시 체고래 데네 자데 겸로다 셈지에서 상계 최동 소규 최남라 자주 바도 단에 상계 최동 소규 최남라 자주 바도 단에 겹수치에서 디기 겸유다 겹수 조항디시 에 다이 지속이고 처음에 졸라 펜션 상계 주버 쇼세디 데네 장슈 셈제바 데니 진바다 추rum라 숨이게 되지 개와서 바텔라 데네 안 상계 고방 토벌 쇼세비 장슈 셈 디시 숨고래
in dependence on engaging in the reflections I've mentioned, and with the arisal of the meaning of this, you can then have the basis to apply meaning to these words. So the first line we have, so the Tibetan actually starts with our second line, to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly, or the Sangha jewel. This then refers to the three jewels. So in English, it's the second line. So this, it makes explicit that this is a prayer of refuge, calling to mind the three jewels. So the meaning of that has been mentioned. And through our reflection in the way I described, starting with suffering, who has the freedom, the ability to guide us to develop a state free of suffering, in this way, we should develop genuine trust in the Buddha and thereby his teachings, the Dharma, and his skilled, realized companions, the Supreme Assembly. With that in mind, reciting this line has genuine meaning. Then the second line in Tibetan, our first line, I go for refuge until I am enlightened. This then is our lifelong commitment, or our lives' long commitment. Also, it puts the actual goal that we are striving for, full enlightenment, into perspective. So call that to mind. Then the next line, the third line, by the merits I create through listening to the Dharma, that's one I'm reading here, through the practicing generosity rather. This refers to all the virtuous activities we do. So in the context of the teaching today, through the merits gained through not harming others, and generating a mind that's determined not to harm, as well as the mind that holds others dear, as close. Through all this merit, may I quickly, now the fourth line, become a Buddha in order to benefit all sentient beings. So the third and fourth line are the generation of bodhicitta. The first two lines about the generation of refuge. For this to come about genuinely comes about independence both on the meditations, the reflections, and being mindful of or aware of those reflections whilst reciting words. So perhaps recite them slowly, but with that recollection, and then it won't be a mere recitation.
Samla ditang yu tone sangyo shina so yu shina chanju ba de dan ju su ti pa duen ba ne de sik duen ba dan duen de sam da wa ni ga cha ro di be ji ya bo le.
So this really was a good question. I'm glad you asked it, because this all too easily can happen. So therefore, the solution is just before you start reciting, recall the meditation. Who had first about suffering, who has the ability to provide freedom from suffering, or not provide, guide me to attain freedom from suffering. That is the three jewels. And this is the position myself and all others are in. All beings, ordinary sentient beings, are suffering. So therefore, through the meritite community, may I become a Buddha for their sake.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.
Do you have another question? Has another question come through?
Yes, there's a question in the chat. Matt has asked, the word happiness can be broad. Is there a clear and simple definition of happiness we can use to motivate our practice?
Okay.
She's Digi said, Devo said, and Semlia and the Dunga Meva Semdele and Devorwa. And Lula Gam and Lulu and Devorwa, the Ludia, the Semtias. She's other Mazuki, Shania, Chishania, Digichuna, Sembe Samsina, Shania, Chige, Ganga, Descena, Yahore, Sembe Samdavena, Dinga, the same village, Chago, which is the Dinga Zuki, Dito, the water child.
What it refers to happiness in the context of the Dharma, because you're right, it's used very broadly. A mind that is happy is a mind that is free of afflictions. And a body that's happy is a body of comfort and ease. So therefore, the wish to abide in happiness means abiding in a state freed of suffering, freed of the afflictions. So perhaps a better way to express it in English is peace of mind, because a mind that is at peace is a mind that is free of afflictions. So this is the meaning of happiness in Buddhism.
Duro George going the Yanjik saw a lu saw ya, Chick Delala, Gala Swally, Jura Church or didn't Luki was at Chagova. The semi Deva said it, the nigger Semia and the Namdra, Shena kind of Semia Chick bed Galanaro, she went at Deva Chago, Semi Deva said Chagova. She said that Nana Shania, which is Nana to be part, Janja some died. Mishanai in the Pang, don't know beautiful Jamorsh, Chinam Kisha Horson, two limit don't you give a Kisha Horshid, not similar Haliverson, Najik Tall, Delala, Chidigua, Didiwarwa. She's not Paya watching a 2 year old. She's not so in that young 2 year old, my so the Paya watching a didn't bear watching Royal, which 2000 big some young Jig, some not tall Mason, Delachi, they were Tawa Gala, Jimura, this would Dewarwa.
Happiness is utilized both in the context of physical and mental happiness. So physical happiness, we generally would understand if we are a little cold, we put on something warm. And then our body is at ease. Mental happiness really refers to freedom of anxiety, tension of any type. So anything that disturbs peaceful abiding of the mind. The mind that is at peace will be undisturbed even if approached by someone who clearly is annoying. The mind that is at peace will rather radiate peace and joy to others. So we can appreciate when our mind is in such a state, no matter what we encounter, our mind will not be disturbed. We will be able to easily engage with others in a skillful, wise manner, because our mind is at peace. We will happily give of ourselves to others, help them, guide them, be there for them, because our mind is undisturbed. Therefore, with a mind that is at peace, that is happy, we will always have capacity to give to others. We won't tire, we won't ever have enough. We will be able to give continuously, because our mind is at ease.
Okay,
we have one last question. Namka asks, how in the moment of anger can we utilize it in a positive way or manner and start to recognize it and not suppress or speak it out?
Tadi jidang lung lang du ka thue tes ka le ha re dang bo ka re se ne lung ma la nye le ne nye ma ne ma zu ge da mi de ne chi lung lang ge me sam be sam la ya ne ya dang go de ke chi ma sha go le de ne ge gom shi me na lung lang de ka bla lam sang ka thue ya kha go le ji za da ni jan le nye le ne lung ma la nye le na zu ge di ne de shi she ba ne nye le ne tenge shan ya lung lang ling chi la chawa chin ji ma lung lang me sam be sam lo de ni lung la ba ne ko de ma ki ba cha ge de ya bo yo ma de sam be ge sam la ya ne ya do lung lang me ya sam be sam da ba ne de ni ge dang be ge nam gyun de ne xiang xi ya sa dang go de de ne ya xi ya sa dang ba da de ni mi xian da chi liang ka be liang de lung lang yo de ka bla nam sa de stand to de o da di ni lung la ne ya bo ma sam be de ya and stand to di ya bo ma sam be stand to na the room light got to it. The picture chibuardi and Bena Sani Shogechilia, Chuji, Dinichi Langia, Sambigi, Samlo Chitaji, Honda, who do bene, then Samlo Digi Pempi, Shukingi, Sani Duzitilla, Ni Johamena, Ni Segre, Ni Seture. The nigger Samlo Mataje, and do Stolen Yedibene, Sani Shogetilla, Duzitilla, Ni saving Eva Yomare. Yama dinner, dinner, and yell in the deuce in a summer tower, and some pimping shuki, and the cabbage watches that Lunglan Jigmedi, Yapoma, Shala Nugi, Mikey by Chagri, Yama, the Lungs out in Lambias and Biggie, some tawena, douche and the unity near some tanguina, Digi Shukti, Lungchilan, the Lamsa, 10 to Nedin, or that got good. But the nigger, some locomotion mena, Lunga de Lamsa, take out to your Kalahore.
To be honest, that really is a challenge. Unless it's really a challenge that one to stop oneself, or first to notice when anger has arisen, especially when it's overwhelmed. But even if one notices, it's really difficult not to respond. So therefore, it's imperative we train our mind, engage in these meditations repeatedly over a sustained period. Because if our mind is well trained, even before it gets well trained, whilst one is training, one is developing a habituation that has come to understand that anger is never justified. It only ever brings suffering. One may need to respond sometimes forcefully, clearly, but never with anger. So whilst one's training this, one's intellectually understanding that, but has done so in these meditations many times, recalling it regularly throughout the day, then when one faces a challenging situation and anger starts to arise, one will recognize it. One will recognize it. Why? Through the meditation, we become habituated to recognize that anger harms. Anger only harms and is therefore never justified. So therefore, we'll recognize its arisal. And whilst it's arising, we can deal with it. Once it's arisen, we are overwhelmed and it's too late. So this can be likened to if one is without an alarm clock, but knows we have to get up early the next morning. You'll say, oh, tomorrow morning I really have to wake up early to catch a flight. And you will wake up early the next morning because you've set this clear motivation. So too, developing habituation, seeing the faults of anger, all circumstances, one will be mindful of the arisal of anger and can deal with it. Even better, in your meditation, be prepared for the day, and know when you'll face difficult circumstances, anger will struggle to arise. You'll be prepared.
I think that is all the questions for today. Thank you so much, Geshe-la. Thank you so much, Dorje.